So I decided to get the dash cam. This is the Redtiger F7N. I really like it so far. The only thing is it's challenging to hardwire it and put the rear camera on. So there are two cables that come out of it. One is the power cable and one is the rear camera. So to power it and take advantage of the parking mode, you need to hardwire it to the fuse box or battery. And so looking at my E36 M3, so there's a fuse box with what it powers and so on. And there are two types of circuitries. The ones that are always on, such as in my case it's a cigarette lighter. I have a hot cigarette lighter, meaning it's always on regardless of whether the key is in the car or not. But then the accessory circuitry, here highlighted in red, are the ones that only get power when you have the key in this case in ignition position 2. And so whereas the yellow is the battery positive terminal, is always on, that's the cigarette lighter. So I decided to use these two fuses.
Okay, so today I will talk about wiring this dash cam, my E36 M3. And again, I wanted to attach the hardwired kit so I can get the camera to work in parking sensor mode. So I snaked the wire in the back here. This is the hardwired kit, and worked around it here. And I'm gonna do it, more professionally, but this is just for measuring the. Again, you can easily slide this right behind this trim board, and of course, when you get down here, the idea is that since the fuse box is in the trunk, I don't want to have to fiddle with taking the glove box out. And I'm going to show you an alternative to an easy way to get to the hood, if you don't mind a small imperfection, which I don't mind for now. So the imperfection is that this wire is going to wrap around here. However, you can easily get that wire to go flush with the system here. It won't show very much, and the key is to get this under here. So for doing that, I have taken the thickness of the wire down by taking this out a little bit. So now I'm going to try to just work this in here, and there's a little pin here. You can just pull that out and then work the wire under this. So it's kind of covered now. We can work this out in here, get through the to the side here. Again, you can't really see that wire, and coming back around here. I don't have enough length to go all the way around here, which is what my original plan, because if I did that, then this piece would land here, and that's not good. All right, so as you can see, I actually got the wire to go under the weather stripping here. Now the kit came with these fuses, and I'm not happy about that, because these fuses essentially remove the protection that the original fuses have. And I did get the tapping kit. The problem with that tapping kit is it doesn't fit right. So ideally you'd want to be able to use this. Now I measured the positive end of my fuse box here, and the positive end is actually the one on the right. So this one, not that one, which means that I would have to put this fuse tapper into this way, and that would not go very well because the box blocks it. Just make sure you do not mistaken this bolt for a ground. This is not the ground, quite the opposite. This is actually the 12 volt battery terminal. In fact, that powers up the whole fuse box. Here's a scheme of the fuse step that I drew to clarify how they work, and to show the importance of putting it in the correct direction. Now, if you put it in the opposite direction, it's not going to be a major problem, but there is a difference, and the difference is that the cam fuse would actually then be dependent on the functionality of the bottom fuse, which for the most part should be okay, because if your bottom fuse is burnt out, you should replace it. But I think it would be better to put it in the correct direction so that they are completely independent and you don't have to go have two fuses for the cam. But take a look, pause this video if needed. So even though it works when I had it in here this way, I want to, the problem with that is that your
using a different fuse than what the original manufacturer recommendation for that slot. So I'm going to use a fuse tap, and the fuse tap is the correct way to do it. And again, just so you know that this blade, this one and that one are all one metal, so basically they're all connected. This lower insert slot is connected to this, so that when you put the original fuse on the bottom here, you're essentially just connecting these two. Now you want the positive end of the fuse box to go in here, so that when you're tapping into it, it goes from here through the fuse, the top fuse, which is the cam fuse, and then that goes into this wire. So this upper right hand slot is only connected to this, right? So that's just a connection here. So that does not get any power. So you would want to put this the right way if you can. However, in my case, there's a problem with even putting it in any way. If you try to put it here, it won't actually fit because of the piece of plastic here, the lip, which I could cut through. But I just realized, instead of cutting through the lip, why don't I just cut through the fuse tap? I'd rather do that than mess up the original plastic. It's not a big deal if you cut this, in fact, all the way completely. So let's do that. Remove that. You don't need that, really. And now you have to cut through this piece of plastic enough so it does not interfere with the plastic on the... Alright, so I have to do this carefully. So what you do is just give it a little... Don't go too far. Just use a blade to cut through it. And once you do that, it actually kind of flakes open. So you can actually cut the whole thing if you're going to use the fuse that came with the cam. And let's try to do that. Now you can seal that if you want with glue or whatever it is you want. Alright, let's put this back on. So as you can see, I also cut away at this little plastic here so it doesn't get in the way of the box. You can either cut this completely out or just slide it down. But the idea here is that when you put the fuse tap, so what you're going to do, you're going to put the original fuse down here. Again, remember, there is a direction to this, even though I cut that cord. Now what's replacing it here, the positive goes in there, goes through the fuse, and then goes out from here to the cam, right? So the idea is you want to put this here, this way, and not the other way, right? So now this is the orientation. You have the bottom fuse, the original factory fuse. This is going to be the positive end, which is, in my case, on the right side. So I'm going to orient this way, which is why I had to cut through that plastic. And then, of course, the positive is going to go this way, travel through this new fuse, and as long as the fuse is okay, it connects power here to the cam. And if this fuse blows, the cam will stop getting power. This is a cigarette lighter, so it's 30 amp fuse. Anyway, so I'm going to put this way. And I think the box will close. Have to be very careful that we don't damage anything as we close the box. Let me see here. So when it's recording right now, and when you turn off the car, it shuts down, and but it stays recording. Maybe parking mode is not activated, so let's see here. Oh, yeah, so you need to activate it, and oh, it has 48-hour survey. Okay, I would say let's put it on that one, and that's it. And so when you turn it off, It continues recording. As you can see, it's recording right now in parking mode, and that's the P. And it turns off, so it saves the, hopefully it doesn't drain the battery, we'll see. And I got the suction cup mount here, which it's not hot yet, so it's not going to come off. And I'm trying to determine where to put the rear cam. Of course, the typical place is to put it right here above the license plate, underneath the button. So I've got this cam actually already connected here to my external power source, and we're going to test the difference. So here's the this is the rear camera in action. I've just loosely put it up with with painter's tape just to be able to test it, and here's the image that you would get, which obviously is pretty good. It's a nice wide angle, but let me show you what happens when you put it down below, right underneath this trim panel where it cannot be seen, but it's probably also easy to wire. Now remember that image here, and let's try to move it down. And the image is just as amazing. In fact, I think I like it more. I mean, it's showing less of the sky and more of the street. So I don't see why I have to worry about wiring it through the trunk and getting all my trim panels off, and from the, I'm just going to wire it under the car and work my way through to the front. This is not the best way. This is not what they say. This is kind of my way of doing it, so I don't have to do major surgery. But I think this is pretty good, and I'm going to go with it. I got a cord long enough because I need to put it under the car. I'm going to try to wire the rear cam, by snaking the wire up here, just like I did with the power wire. Again, work my way in here and do this sort of imperfect job of angling it here to get to that. Again, marry it with the old wire of the power, so they're both here, kind of covering one another, and then just bring it around, put it under this, and then go through under the hood. Again, the door closes, no problem. Again, this is if you don't want to have to remove trim panels, and my car is 23 years old. I don't think any of this plastic is going to hold. Again, I'm just holding this so I know exactly the length that I need. So it goes around here. Again, you can see the power wire and then the rear camera wire going around here. And now it's gonna come here. And obviously you can always hide it under this, so eventually I'll do that. But for now, I just want to know exactly how to bring it down here. Again, the key is not to let it hang loose. You want it to not be near moving parts, nor near any heated objects. Again, this is not the perfect way to wire your rear camera, but I'm gonna give it a try, because the only imperfection besides being under the car is the fact that it shows a little bit when you open the door, but that's the only place you could see it. Again, most of the time I'm using this car, the door is closed, whether it's parked or being driven. But again, the key is to find the right spot to snake it down, and I was able to attach the wire on it so I can just guide it down. Oh, now it's really in there. Yeah, there it is. So, again, you want it away from the steering area. All right, folks, here's the job completed. The only imperfection, at least the one that's visible, is this one. If you can live with this, having these two cables visible only here. Of course, the door closes, no problem. And here is, they go around all the way behind that windshield trim panel up there, and they get themselves to the camera. All right, so this is the converter box, and that one has the cables coming here. You can see the cable right there, and just sort of the excess cable is tucked under,
and you could see that it's right there. And so the ground is connected right here. In the yellow and the red one, I tapped into the fuse box here. The yellow one, I chose the cigarette lighter, and again, just make sure you see that this is a fuse tap. You'd want to connect it this way so that the positive end is here. There you go. All right, and then the other one, and so you may notice here that I just kind of etched two little, wanted to do minimal cutting on this box, so I etched two little lips for the wires so that they're not crimped or damaged. So I just kind of rest them here so the box closes. And same thing here, I'm not going to pull it out. The positive for this fuse box is the lower end of the fuse. All right, here's the rear camera's cable. Again, it goes from the front. It finds its way around here. It's under this weather stripping here, and then it goes right here under that, and it's here. I just kind of held it between these harnesses, and now it goes down, as you can see, under the brake fluid reservoir, and it finds its way right there. Okay, so let's find that cable. All right, here it is. You can see it's right there. I just attached it to this clip here, conveniently located so it stays out of the way. Again, the key is you don't want it anywhere near the steering column. That would be a problem, obviously. And then after this, I threaded it right behind the control arm there. Again, it's hanging kind of loosely, right? It's not in the way of anything. And then I tucked it under here and hid it out of the way so it's not, you know, anywhere. And then I tucked it under this trim panel here. Now, obviously, I could have removed these clips and hid it under, but then when I got to this one, I actually did remove that. I removed that one and put the wire behind it and then put it back in. So at least the wire will not ever come loose on the road. And then I zip tied it here to this piece of plastic. Again, I'm avoiding anything hot, so plastic is probably not gonna get that hot. And then I worked it underneath this fuel tank. Again, this is well insulated, so I'm not worried about the fuel tank exploding or anything like that. And then it goes right, okay, so this is the thing. I put it right behind that heat shield, so it's not ever touching the exhausts. And then here you can see it right above that heat shield, and it goes right under the differential, kind of laying loosely on this bracket. And again, and then the excess wire, I just zip tied it to this bracket here. Anyway, and then I worked it here, tucked the remaining, that red cord you don't really need. That's for the backup lights, which my camera doesn't have the ability to trigger that. And then here's the connection between the camera, and again, there's the actual camera mount with the double stick tape, 3M.